Hello and welcome to MudderRucker, the Women's Rugby Podcast. This is Season 3, Episode 23. I'm Ailbhe and Cian.
And I'm Cliodhna Maloney.
And with us again is a woman who likely talks rugby in her sleep. It's Chloe Pearse. Welcome back, Chloe.
Yeah, pretty much how it goes. Sleep, awake all the time.
And we're very privileged to have a guest join us today. For once, Cian, you're not even outnumbered as we're joined by a proud Welsh man, stats nerd and rugby savant. It's Hugh Griffin.
Hello, thank you for having me on. I think what you guys do on this podcast is fantastic, giving women a platform to talk about the sport through their own voice, and to be invited on is a massive privilege.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's our privilege.
Yeah, and just on the note, actually, I prepared a little something just to hopefully make you feel a little bit more comfortable at home. So there we go now.
Let's not even tell the audio listeners what's happened.
No, watch the video. Click on the link, YouTube.
I love it. So Hugh, we'll come to you first. Have a bit of a chat about what I like to call the Welsh resurgence. It's not quite coming off in terms of the scores at the moment, but Wales seem to be building back something after kind of a tumultuous time off the pitch. Can you take us through what's been going on over the last few years and how it's been impacting the game as a whole in Wales and in particular the women's team?
Yeah, so obviously Welsh rugby at the moment is very tumultuous, very difficult. Most of that is originating from the men's game and the WRU's kind of plans to reduce the number of men's teams and try and restructure the finances of the game, or at least using the finances of the game in Wales as a justification for that. And that does impact the women's game. Unfortunately, the two aren't, separated from each other, even though you'd like to think that they were. It's clear that, the men's national side is, numbers 1 through 10 on the WRU's kind of priorities list. And so last year, obviously, we have in the Celtic Challenge the Bristol Thunder and Gwalia Lightning teams. And last year it was announced that those teams would be coming to an end, and that the regions would have to take on running the women's club sides in the Celtic Challenge, and there would be a tender process for which regions would get a women's team, basically. And unfortunately, a few weeks after that announcement, the WRU decided that they were going to cut at least one of the men's teams. And so that entire thing fell apart, and it was leaked via the BBC that led to a pausing of women's rugby reforms in Wales, which wasn't officially announced by the WRU. It was an internal memo that was leaked to the BBC. So hence we are still with Bristol Thunder and Gwalia Lightning. But in terms of the last 6 months or so, honestly, the women's team does feel like a bit of light relief, even despite how awful the World Cup was. It does feel refreshing to not be talking about at least, different nonsense this time instead of the same old nonsense.
Yeah, like if you look at the performances of Wales over the last few years, winless Six Nations, winless in the World Cup, a win in a warm-up game. And yet despite the results, there does seem to be an improvement game on game with the women. Sean Lynn obviously took over just a little over a year ago at this point. Is it just something that we need to be a bit patient with? Is it going to come right?
Yeah. Firstly, I think it's important to say that in my opinion, I don't think that there's a better candidate than Sean Lynn out there for the job. And I think Sean Lynn, I fully believe that he's currently in his dream job, and I fully believe that he has a vision of where he wants to get to, and he has a roadmap of how he wants to get there. I've said this Six Nations, the Sean Lynn era has finally started. The problem is that it's now the third time I've said that after the World Cup and the last Six Nations. So it is taking a bit of time getting going. We've got assistant coaches now, which is new, which is a vibe. It's fun. It seems to be having a positive impact. And as you say, even though the results haven't quite started upticking yet, we are still losing every match. The performances are credible, and they look organised out there, which is new.
Yeah, it seems to me that there's an element of them trying to implement doing the basics well, and they are doing those basics very well. And then we're seeing a little bit of creativity starting to build on that. Do you think that, Sean Lynn's in the perfect place now that, start of another World Cup cycle, he has that time that he can start to build in those structures and kind of get some fresh legs into the team and build towards something bigger?
Yeah, I think that Sean's very good at letting you read between the lines very, excuse me, very clearly. He's very good at saying the right words. If you read them on a sheet of paper, you would say, "Oh, it's very normal." But if you watch his interviews, you're like, "Oh, okay, I see what he's saying here." And I think it's been quite clear since before the World Cup that he's wanted to move some of the older stars on. Now, a mix of not having anyone to actually take their place yet, or injuries, or whatever it is, means that he probably hasn't done that as quickly as he would have liked. But in a funny way, the WRU not really having that much interest in women's rugby kind of helps Sean a bit, because it means there's no one arguing with him. There's no one telling him no. So he's there, and if you watch some of his interviews, you get the sense of like, is he picking the Celtic Challenge teams? You know, is he selecting which players go where, what kind of minutes they get, and things like that. So he is very much a director of rugby for the women's program, and it does feel like he is overseeing all of it. And like I said, I do believe that he has a vision for it. So that's, in a funny way, a good thing.
Yeah, it does seem very much like that. That the women's team is just, oh, here's a bit of money, go off and just don't annoy us. But like you said, it's maybe to their benefit that he's not under a lot of pressure now. It's just do your job, do it as best you can, and he's given that patience to build. We'll move briefly onto the Italy-England game. I love talking about England, so I do. Cian, England have conceded 9 tries now across 2 games, 12 tries in the competition overall. Take us through the figures and how potentially the gap might be closing.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I mean, we were only talking last week about how, it was amazing that a team had managed to take a try bonus point against England for the first time in seemingly a long time, a very rare occasion. And then it happens again the following round. So maybe it's not such a rare thing after all. So yeah, 4 and 5 in the last 2 rounds. I mean, round 1 and 2, we scored in the 63rd and the 73rd minute, kind of, fairly inconsequential in the great scheme of things for the game. Scotland scored 1 on the 35th minute. 1 try. Again, no one was worried about that. But Wales scored in the 16th minute and then again in the 32nd minute. And round 4, Italy scored on number 16? Sorry, minute 16, 24 and 34. That's 3 tries before half time. Like, that's putting decent numbers on what's, the top team in the world. So, they're scoring against England's first choice players. It's not the kind of the garbage time bench, all of that. Now, this a little bit counterintuitive and a little bit related to one of Hugh's recent videos. It's not the tackling. That's the problem. Their tackling success has actually gone up from, 78.5 in round 2 to 89.2 in round 4. So they're not missing tackles. It's looks more like a breakdown issue for them. Their turnovers conceded have gone 16, 12, 15 and 19. They conceded 19 turnovers against Italy.
Wow.
That's the most they've given away all tournament. And the turnovers they're winning have been halved. They had 7 in round 1 and 2, and that was down to 3 in round 3 and 4. So they're obviously there's less concentration going on at the breakdown. Is it maybe that they're kind of having it too easy in the rest of the game, that they're maybe not putting in as much effort in that part of the game? So this is kind of an interesting thing now, looking at them going into the game with France, is that England are operating 15.5 turnovers per game, joint worst in the Six Nations. Who shares that record with them? France.
Wow.
So the 2 worst ball security teams are going up against each other for a Grand Slam on Saturday. You wouldn't be able to write it. France had 23 turnovers given away against Wales, which was the single worst figure of the whole tournament. So England's turnover problem doesn't make France like sure things or even possibles. It just means that 2 teams with the same vulnerabilities are going to be going head to head. Ireland have actually done very well on that, and Wales as well, cleanest side in the tournament to 10.75. But I think that goes straight. Ball security by itself doesn't win you games. But yeah, there's definitely a potential in there for France if they can do the thing they do in broken play and get their offload game going. Which is, I mean, they had 14 offloads against Scotland in round 4 alone. that continuity ball really, really lets them release their backs quite effectively. And we've seen them run riot, and usually they only have to do it for half the game. So potentially France have a good day, England have a bad day.
Yeah.
Bit of niggle, a little bit of unstructured play early on. France maybe get 1-2 scores in. I mean, God forbid they might even get a lead. Who knows?
It's definitely kind of setting us up for what's going to be a free-flowing, exciting, probably high-scoring game. And Chloe, just on those kind of, on England being a little bit leaky, we all know they've had some significant injuries, players unavailable due to the post-Rugby World Cup baby boom. It's definitely showing some serious cracks in defence. Do you think it's all down to those personnel changes, or is it a system that's not serving them as well as before?
Yeah, I think it's the personnel changes, to be honest. I don't think it's the system. Like, they're missing, I was actually thinking they must be missing 10 or 11 World Cup winners at the moment. And they just, they're back. And they have back rows on back rows, but it's like a curse at the moment, and then they have Faye Natty, who's kind of stepped in and really picked up the mantle. And then she pulls out just before the game. So, their whole back five, between second rows and back rows that played the weekend, none of them started in the World Cup final. It was a big change. Where they're strong, obviously, is their back line is quite settled and their front row. But a lot of the time when you're looking at those people folding in pillars, they got picked on pillar twice, straight through the middle. It's kind of your back rows that are kind of getting around there, and maybe a bit of youth in that and a little bit of naivety. And that's where a couple of those tries came through. But we're saying it's going to be a high-scoring game versus France. I thought the same, and then I said, watch it now be a stalemate, and it'll be penalty, 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 and we all won't get the
6-3.
Yes, we won't get this, firework final that we're expecting. But they're definitely vulnerable. I think if you're going to get them, this is it. Because the reality is it's very unusual for them to have so many players out injured. It's very unlucky as well. But that's where France have to see the opportunity. France have their own injury woes as well. They've lost a couple of players, but I think England's are much bigger. With the players they've lost as well, Alex Matthews, Cabea, Allcroft, Abby Ward, there's such leadership missing, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's missing in their pack. It's a lot of leadership that they've lost.
Well, they have Marty Packer. I'm not going to mention her again.
I know.
Sorry.
It actually kills us. It kills us. But she topped everything. Tackles, carries, tries, scored, meters made. She topped everything.
I know.
Look, you have to give a bit of credit, right? And I know she's not everyone's favourite biscuit in the box, right? But she's out. She's out of the team. She's she's playing this backup role for the World Cup. She's been playing it again now. Captaincy has been gone for nearly 2 years. And now all these injuries have come in, and she's the person they look to. And in fairness to her, she stood up and was counted. And scored she didn't just score the tries, though. She made the tackle. She was top tackler, top carrier. She did everything that you'd expect from a very senior player. So, as I said, not my favourite player in the world, but you have to give credit where it's due. And I would give credit to her, because I think she really did things that when they needed it, she was there at the weekend.
Yeah, I genuinely thought kind of post-World Cup should be put out to pasture. And, was it the second round, Sarah Orchard on comms for BBC was saying, there's life in the old girl yet. And I was like, is there? And then this weekend, jeez, 4 tries. My God.
I know.
I'd say she gets a load of joy proving us wrong.
Oh, absolutely. She's listening every week.
She is.
Now, that's why I'm going the other way now. I'm going to kill her with kindness so that it all unravels versus France.
Pure
and
fear.
France win.
Hugh, you did a piece recently on a lot of kind of defensive structures and how to build, great defenses. With your intuition in terms of defence, what is leading to the English woes defensively for you? Is it that inexperience that we've been talking about?
Yeah, potentially. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of a mentally they're not on it 100%. Because if you go from, and Ellie Kildunn spoke about this, about how you go from a World Cup final in front of 80,000 people in Twickenham to going and playing in front of, in the PWR, best will in the world, friends and family a lot of the time. And so, and then even in Italy, it's not the same crowds. I think it was 4,000 or something there. So, and if you throw into the fact that they went 26-0 up so early, and they went so easy as well, they probably were like a bit, okay, and it's probably going through the motions a little bit for them. So, like as Cian was saying, are they trying that hard at the breakdown? Are they giving everything? Are they putting their body on the line in the same way? I wonder if they're not. Obviously, with Eddie Kildunn's yellow card as well in the penalty try, as that was happening in real time, you kind of saw it coming. In that it was like, it's a 4 versus 1 on the right there. It's a walk in for Italy if they score, and I think clearly Ellie thought that as well. I was like, I've got to do something. And she does have a little bit of a track record for this, of just going, I'm Ellie Kildunn, I won't get a yellow card. And then she does. And it's a penalty try. And I thought it was exact, obviously the correct thing. But what's the saying? That, if someone gets their record score against you once, it's unfortunate. If it happens twice, it looks careless. And I think probably careless is the word that I would use for England at the moment. Because remember, we were all told that England's B team is the second best team in the world. Well, this is the B team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's essentially what we're seeing. We're seeing a team that can afford to, 19 turnovers, Cian, you were saying, they can concede that, still have a platform to build off and run in 60 points when they're leaking. That's just incredible. You'll probably share our sentiments as not England haters, but
I'm an England hater. I can say it.
You can be very honest. But, we're all waiting for that day that England are toppled. Who it's going to be, we don't know. Do you think that that's potentially going to happen next weekend?
The thing, we'll talk about it more when we get to the France-Scotland game, but the thing that France are really struggling with is maul time. They're just penalties machines in the maul. And if you say to England, hey, do you fancy just mauling it for 80 minutes? They'd go, ooh, yes, please. So that kind of makes me a bit worried. Although, again, we'll talk about it more when we come to France. It wouldn't surprise me if France have spent 2 out of every 3 training sessions this Six Nations so far just doing Red Roses prep, to be honest. So we'll see when it comes. I do think that England are clear favourites. Just because even though they're still conceding 30-odd points a game in the last 2 games, they're still scoring 60. So, yeah. And they make it look easy. Chloe, an Irish loss next weekend, God forbid, and an Italian win, it could see Italy around 3rd place. As bad as that would be for us, the Italian performances after a pretty abysmal World Cup, they wouldn't exactly be undeserving of a high finish like that in this championship.
No, I don't think so. And I think they've shown that, like, in a couple of their performances, like they put Scotland to the absolute sword, and then they get, score a couple of tries against England where we didn't, a lot more. So I think they would definitely have value for it. It's in our hands. That's the reality, it's not about them being undeserving or deserving. It's about, do we do our job and do we win next week and against Scotland like we should? But yeah, like if we don't and they take it, all credit due to them. They've played really well in those games. The game that let them down was the game against us. They just didn't show up, and we did, and we were clinical and we were brave, and we made them look like a completely different side that we've seen the last 2 weeks, I suppose. So probably lucky for us that they didn't bring what they played against England against us, or we mightn't have had that second win. So yeah, I think it's up to us. Like, I think there's no reason why we shouldn't beat Scotland unless it goes absolutely early red card, someone gets hurt early, or I think we have to have, and I'm tipping wood now, I'm like, we need to have a disaster, I think, to lose against Scotland. But I think it would be all credit to Italy if they did finish 3rd as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll look then at the Scotland-France game in the Hive. Chloe, we've been talking all tournament so far that France are really a second half team, and they can be a slow starting team. Not true this weekend. 5 tries in the first half and only topped by 6 in the second. They opened the scoring after 1 minute. They seem to be coming together and kind of fixing those early woes in the games.
Yeah, but as we already mentioned, the discipline is a disaster, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Another yellow card in the first half, and that's where, I think that's where Hugh mentioned England will really capitalise. Like, if they give away a penalty at Maul, if they give away a yellow card, England will just, and especially like to lose your captain as well. And, you know, it is forwards, you're losing, you know, extra weight in them all, you're losing people. And that's where England will really, 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 really put the foot down. So it's just something they have to fix. It's mental, like how they continue to keep carrying on this ill discipline. But no, they were really good. I thought Barat, their fullback, was unbelievable. I thought she, you know, she had a lot of lovely assists. She had a lovely try. I thought she did really well. And then, you know, they just had a couple of big ball carriers in the middle to score as well. You know, from second row as well, 2 tries there. But again, they're leaking tries also. So is it that blockbuster game? I don't know. What's the game going to be? Is it going to be all free-flowing rugby, offload here, we're all running up and back looking at what's going to happen? Or is it going to be a real stalemate where it's like 2 Titanic teams, you know, hammer and tongs, and no one wants to give an inch, so we don't see any scores? But I do think France have the ability to definitely be up there with England. It just depends, can they do it for 80 minutes and can they keep the discipline, you know, under wraps as well?
It does seem to be that, Chloe, there's definitely some similarities between how England and France are playing at the moment. Like Cian outlined, they're getting turned over constantly. France turned over again 16 times. But in saying that, when they get free flowing, 14 offloads by France to 1 by Scotland, 42 defenders beaten. You know, they are improving game on game. I think they're coming together as a kind of a young side and doing quite well. But it is just chaotic.
Yeah, and as we always say, any team that has Bordeaux and Seuss is going to be chaotic, right? Because, you know, there's structure and there's, you know, let's just play off her and she'll make some magic, and, you know, most of the time it works. But with that unstructured play comes, you know, less people to be in rucks, which is what leads to turnovers as well, right? And then also that kind of unstructured, free-flowing game, you know. And with the 14 offloads, you have, you know, there's always the risk that the offload's going to be intercepted, or that you do one too many, and then, you know, you throw the 50-50s, which is in general what increases the error count. But we know how good they are in unstructured play. The other worrying part for France is their like line out and scrum success rate. You know, they're down in the 80s. England are up in the hundreds for the past game. That's an area as well, like, that would worry you for them. If England bring, you know, all that force, all that power in both those areas, if they cannot compete, plus if they can't retain their own ball, it won't matter about what unstructured play they have. It won't matter how good at offloading they are, because England will march them down the pitch every single time. So they have a lot of work to do this week. It isn't on their unstructured play, we know that. It's not on their ability to beat defenders. We know how good they are in that. It's about, like, their starter plays will have to be really good, because otherwise they won't get the opportunity to do the unstructured bits.
Hugh, going back to that kind of defensive structure again, Scotland missed 42 tackles, which by any metric is disastrous for them. It seems like they're starting to kind of hum a little bit in attack. You know, they are putting scores on. There's 4 tries this weekend, all converted. Is the defensive element an easy fix for them, do you think? Or is it something that needs a complete rejig?
Yeah, it's, you know, I did my piece today about defence, and I said that, missed tackles is a misleading stat. But when you're Scotland and you're missing, I think this is the second game in the Six Nations, they've missed more than 40. And kind of the worrying thing is that means that they're getting in a position to attempt those 40 and failing. That's the really worrying thing. And if you look at, when I did my Six Nations preview for Scotland, I said, look, they were bottom of all of the physicality stats last year, whether that's like dominant carries, dominant tackles, post-contact meters, or whatever it happens to be. That was Scotland at the bottom of all of them. And it's just carried through into this Six Nations. Obviously, no Ailbhe Gallagher is massive. And she's there for Wafer, obviously. And, you know, missing Emma Orr and Lisa Thompson, that's a lot. Although, you know, I did argue a couple of weeks ago that, you know, one injury shouldn't equal another 10 points on the scoreboard. Really, ideally, is not how it should go. But they don't have the physicality to kind of hold back teams. And you saw, like, Fowler Clough was, I think when they took her off in 55 minutes, I think every Scotland player would have breathed a sigh of relief, because she put in some monster hits while she was on the field. she's having an incredible tournament. But yeah, it's hard to blame the system. And look, with Fuka, I watched his USA team last year, and at times I was like, "Oh, this isn't great." I'm watching where these players are stood and how they're setting up, and I'm like, "Oh, there's some problems here." And you could say like, "Oh, if they were just running through them without getting laying a finger on them," you could say it's a structural issue. But the fact that the players are getting into positions to make tackles and falling off them and missing them, then you'd say there's an athletic issue there. And that's kind of maybe the most difficult thing, because you can't teach someone to be 6 inches taller in a week, and I think that's something that Wales are really struggling with, is that from an athletic point of view is where a lot of the gap is. And I think Scotland, once they've lost a bunch of their top athletes, then it's really the gap between them and the big teams is big in every sense of the words, is significant.
Chloe, the stat that probably shocked me most about that game was that France in the entire game only had to make 87 tackles, and yet they conceded 4 tries. It just seems a little bit bonkers that they're having to tackle so little. But is it a good sign for Scotland? They're not getting a lot of ball, but when they are, they're being effective with it.
Yeah, and in fairness, as we've already said, like, they were missing Emma Orr. She's a big go forward for them, and Ailbhe Gallagher. Like, they were probably their 2 like leaders in go forward ball between a back and a forward. And now they're down both. But Rachel Phillips came in and actually did a great job. Like, and like that, Helen Nensel, there's good structure there. There's good players there. It's just, I think, the lack of physicality in the pack. But when they got going, then they got going. And one of the tries, like, they've a boot and a jab with someone out the back and someone there, and it was a lovely pass to Rachel Phillips on a crash line, and she gets over, which shows that there's something there that they can work with. Like, they understand like how to get through. I just think we didn't see enough of it because they didn't have enough go forward ball. But then, like that, you say, how did they score 4 tries? And to be honest with you, I don't really know. It's the answer. Because when you look at everything and you look at the game as a whole, it's surprising they scored 4 tries. Yeah. Obviously, one of them at the end, Maul, as we've said already, is France's Achilles heel. So that one was fairly obvious. But, 2 from the centre probably shouldn't have been conceded from France. But maybe that's just a sign that, desperation sometimes kind of gets you over where possibly structure doesn't. And I think that was a little bit of the case at Scotland. But the honest answer is I don't know how they scored 4 tries.
Yeah. We'll move on to the big game of the weekend, which was Ireland v Wales in Belfast. Chloe, some huge performances from the Irish pack again this weekend. 4 tries between 2 out of 3 back rows. Brittany Hogan, just an absolute animal when it comes to doing all of the kind of thankless work. Then Aoife Wafer mops up the thanked work. Is this the best back row for you that you've ever seen from Ireland?
Oh, Jesus, that's a big statement to make now with people like Joy Neville, Claire Malloy Jr. I'll put the splinters and I'll sit on the fence on that one because I have too many friends and I don't want to insult anyone. But no, look, it's a great balanced back row, isn't it? Like because when you look at the actual stats and you see like Brittany, like we've said it, right, since the World Cup, Brittany has just transformed herself, and playing in the PWR as well, I think has really stood to her. But she's doing all the grunt work, like she really is. Like, out of her, like, it didn't make a lot of meters out of the 23 carries she had, I suppose. No. When you look at that stat, but on the other side of it, that was the hard work that had to be done to allow other people to shine. And then Aoife Wafer just absolutely blew it out of the water. She, like, in terms of carry meters, like the breaks, like her explosiveness off the back of scrums, and the overthrow line out that happens and she makes the big break up the middle. Like, she's deceptively quick when she gets going.
She really is.
And I imagine it's probably a fullback's worst nightmare to see her breaking the line and having to try to tackle her.
God, yeah. Juggernaut coming at you.
Absolutely. And then you just throw in the Sonny Bill out the back to put Bay away for the try. Like, that was the world-class piece, I think,
That was filthy.
Yeah, absolute filth, like, but...
With a size 5 ball, no less.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, size 5 ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Erin is just always busy, you know, like, and like that, she mightn't be the person scoring the tries. She gets a couple of turnovers, but she's so busy. You can see her; she's always there. I said it in the Italy game, like she's now always nearly the closest person to a try score because she works so hard. So I think that back row has really, like, you know, there's no one taking a jersey off any of them. I'd be shocked if he changes it for next weekend, but it's definitely done us really well. And I know Scott said it afterwards in his interview, like, to be a world-class team, you have to have a world-class back row. And I do think, you know, world-class is a big statement to make, but we're not too far off. Like, we have a very good back row at the moment, and it's helping a lot of what we do well.
They're certainly very complimentary of each other, like you were saying, that, you know, we have the absolute workhorse who's setting up a platform that is Hogan. We have Ailbhe Wafer just eating up yards. And then defensively, 52 tackles across 4 rounds from Erin King. She's an absolute workhorse as well and is leading by example. Her ruck work in particular is absolutely immense. She's always there, always there. I think she's got a huge amount of ruck entries. Can't remember exactly the stat, but just like she's constantly neck deep in it. But somebody else who really impressed me at the weekend was Eve Higgins. I thought she was particularly good, and I'm wondering, Chloe, is it potentially some of that competition with McGillivray and losing the starting jersey that's sharpening her game a bit?
I don't know, like, I'd never have said I think she'd won poor game. I think she'd a poor game and she got the axe for it. And look, that's, if there's someone there who's nipping at the heels and performing well in training behind you and you have a poor game, that's professional sport. You should probably get the axe, right?
Yeah.
So I think she probably, you know, I thought Nancy deserved to get her start when she did off the back of it. But since then, Eve has added value. You know, she had come off the bench, had done really well. So I don't want to say it's complacency, because I don't think Eve's that type of player. Like, she's naturally competitive. She always wants to be the best. She's been playing for so long. But maybe it was a little bit of a kick up the arse. I don't know, like, but I wouldn't say she's assuming that the jersey was hers and it's complacency, but definitely has, you know, played well in the games. Like, came on last week, did really well, and then the starting this week did really well too to get us over the gain line. And that's what she does, right? And, you know, she's really good in broken play as well. You see it, like, making that big break at the end that led to the last try. But what I'd love to actually see from Eve, because to be honest, when I look at our centres, we've no kicking threat. I'd love to see either of them put boot to ball at some times. Because I think there's times we're trying to get the ball to the wing, we've come off 10 and we're running across the pitch to try get it there, because we don't have the length in our pass that, you know, we see. And maybe Meg Jones in England, you know, she throws some whopper passes to get to the wing and kind of conserves the space, whereas I find Eve
Stacey Flood at 12.
Yeah, I know.
Flood at 12.
Yeah, but then we lose that go forward again, I think.
Yeah.
So that's what I think it is. I'd love to see from Eve and Aoife Dalton, like, you know, as they go, because they're still very young players, like Aoife's, what is she, 22? It's scary, like. I'd love to see them develop
how
their
is she
kicking.
only 22?
Yeah, it's mad. I'd love to see them develop their kicking game, so that it adds another dimension to our attack.
Hugh, there was a little bit of niggle in that game, none more so than when Georgia Evans drew the ire of Cliodhna Maloney McDonald, holding onto her leg about 3 metres or so from the ruck, and Cliodhna lashed out with a kick. Do you think a yellow card was the right decision there? You could be forgiven for wanting more.
It's a funny one to give a yellow, because a yellow suggests that it's been mitigated down for some reason. I mean, it was a bizarre TMO call anyway, because the refs saw it in real time and penalised it.
She stood right there.
Yeah, she stood right. She's seen it, she's penalised it, held her hand up and moved on. And then the TMO's gone, no, I think that's probably a case of the TMO going, I think you've undersold this a little bit. That might be kind of ref code for, I think you need to give a harsher sanction here. And, you know, we unfortunately didn't get, at least the feed that I was watching didn't have much ref mic on it, apart from when it was being piped through the stadium. So we don't know exactly how the full conversation went, but it's one of those where if it's anything, then it's a red, arguably. Because if you're saying that she's turned around and kicked someone on the floor for, you know, an act of reckless foul play, then you can't. What is the mitigation? You could say, oh, it's not struck the head, or it's not, or whatever it is. But that's one of those where you're punishing outcomes rather than actions, which is something
Yeah.
that rugby does. It's in rugby rules. It's not just this. It drives me mad. So I didn't get that wound up about it, considering, but it's one of those where you think you could argue if it's anything, it's a red.
Looking at it, I instantly just thought that's a red for me. If it's the other way around, I'm screaming a red. Yes, George Evans shouldn't have been holding on to her, preventing her from getting to that next ruck. It was cynical. That's irrelevant to what Cliodhna Maloney McDonald did then. She made the decision in the heat of the moment to turn around and kick somebody rather than try and shove them off or pull her leg. The ref would have caught that anyway, standing right there. Maybe she wasn't aware, but I just felt that she got away quite lightly with it. Coming to you, Chloe, though, Maloney McDonald has been ferocious. She's got back into that starting jersey, and she's been, I don't know, she's just like a woman on a mission. She's hitting absolutely everything, and she's very, very busy.
Yeah, and look, I suppose that's the balance you get with her, right? It's the same. I'm going to liken it to Henry Pollock, right? It's it's always the edge player. They're liable.
She's going to take full offence to that, just so you know.
I was thinking the same.
Whatever. I'm sure she's not listening. But I
hope he is.
You always have some players like that are going to play on the edge, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time it's your 7 where, they're liable to win you 3 or 4 penalties, but they're also liable to be sent off. And that's the risk that you run playing those kind of players. And we've said it, we said it in the France game. She was busy. She was involved in every scrap that was there. And that's the fireness and the bite you need, though. Like, I'm all for it, right? I'm not all for kicking players and getting the yellow card.
Yeah.
But I'm all for the bite that she brings, because I think we lack that in some areas. I think we lack that niggle that she has. So I think it's a good thing. Obviously, fell on the wrong side of it this weekend, bubbled over, lashed out. But I think, does that, warrant her not starting next week? No.
No.
Obviously, for me, I'd say, get rid of her out of the 23, start Niamh, but bet on the bench with my Munster hat. But that's the reality. That's not going to happen, right? My bias is my bias. But I think we need that. We need someone who's going to take offence to everything.
Yeah.
Because that's what, look at Esteban. Now, obviously, he's biting people and everything at the moment. So, but the same, he's a world-class player because he's the first person in with the niggle every single time. So, I don't know. I'm team niggle anyway.
I'm 100% team niggle. Like, it's the niggle that just gets everybody around you fired up as well, not just yourself. Like, Peter O'Mahony just embodied the niggle, and he was absolute marmite. Leinster have never wanted to hate a Munster player more in their entire life. But Jesus, he was effective at it. And his hatred for Glasgow will just go down in history. Cian, facing into next week, Scotland arrive in Dublin, having conceded 84 points, 41 points and 69 points in their last 3 games. Is there anything in the numbers that tells Ireland that they can't sleepwalk into this one next week?
Yeah, there are still a few remaining reasons for Scotland fans to be cheerful. I dug around and managed to find them. Their scrum has been good. They haven't lost a scrum battle in the first 4 rounds. They've come out ahead on their own ball in the scrums across each of the matches. Against Wales, England and France, those scrums all ran at 80% on the day, whereas Scotland came out with 100%, 85.7, 100 in round 3, 85.7 round 4. So the scrum was going well. So there's somewhat of a platform there, if nothing else, certainly on their own ball. Also, they're scoring tries, like 3, 1, 2 and 4. 4 tries in the last game. Really not bad at all against France. Like Rachel Phillips on 15 and 34 getting the brace. She's a young player and she's there running them in for fun against one of the 2 top defensive sides in the 6 Nations. So, if they can use the platform of the scrum and actually get ball to their back line in space, you never know what they could do, and that is something we will have to look out for. Another thing worth noting is Helen Nelson has quietly gone 11 from 11 off the tee this tournament. 10 conversions and a penalty, all slotted 100% across all 4 rounds.
She's the
Like,
only one at 100% now.
yeah, she is.
Did we curse Harrison?
Possibly. Maybe we should talk more about England players. I don't know.
Marty Packer.
But look, yeah, in a tight game, having your kicker absolutely reliably slotting them from wherever it is within kicking range is worth its weight if you can actually keep that score line low. So, what else? Yeah, 9 turnovers against France. Joint highest in a single game by any team in this tournament. We conceded 9 ourselves against Wales round 4, so like there's a couple of bits in there for them to hang their hat on. I would say, yeah, though, you would have to worry about the tackle rate, and their line out is shaky as well. So if they can keep away from those elements of the game as much as possible and put something together based on what they've been actually really achieving, they could actually give us a bit of a scare.
Oh, don't say that. I absolutely fear it, especially given the occasion that it is. I think it's 27,000 tickets sold now to the Aviva, absolutely, tripling our record that we only set a few weeks ago in Galway.
Well, this is it. Environmental pressure is all on us to do it on the day.
There's a lot going on there. It's going to be an incredible occasion, but oh God, I hope
great.
we come out the right side of it.
Yes.
Before we just go to the last few bits for the wrap up, just looking ahead to Le Crunch at the weekend. Hugh, what's your prediction? England or France?
Just to add in that it's in Bordeaux, and if people haven't been to Bordeaux, I highly recommend it. Absolutely fantastic city, and they love their rugby. So if anyone can make the trip, if there's any tickets available, I highly recommend it. My prediction, I'm just so worried about how France are going to, about if they're going to have their kind of catastrophic 20 minutes that they have in the first half that they've had in every game, where they get someone yellow carded and they give away a load of penalties, then you're not going to get away with that against the Red Roses.
No.
So I'm interested to see if France have anything up their sleeve that they haven't shown in the Six Nations so far. Maybe that's just hopium from me that they've been working on a secret plan that they've not showed anybody yet. But if not, then I think that England will England love an excuse to go back to basics. Go, okay, fine, we won't do offloading, we won't do running from our own half. We'll just maul you. That's fine. And I just worry it might be over by half time. Now, we thought that, was it last year or the year before in Twickenham where
they
seemed out of
last
it?
Year.
Yeah, they came back. And so we'll see. But, France have got a few injuries as well. So the only way that I could tip France would be with my heart rather than my head, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, so before we wrap up, Chloe, I just want to go to the under-21s and the incredible performance that we've seen from the under-21 side. Your bias again, a heavy Munster involvement. Briggsy is doing incredible stuff as coach. Lucia Lynn captaining the side. Chisholm scoring for fun as she often does. And Katrina Finn seems to be really honing her game at 10 and pulling off some beautiful crossfield kicks for tries. 3 wins, 3 bonus points. For you, is it a sign of potentially great things to come for this Irish side?
Yeah, it is. And look, isn't it a step up? And it's a leap path, I suppose, from the 18s or AIL or Interpros to the senior game, which is brilliant. You can see a lot of players named in the original Six Nations squad that, were young enough to drop back and play. Ailbhe, Quinn, Jemima as well. So it's great they have the opportunity to do that. Even last weekend, they got Beth and Katrina some game time, having, an off weekend, which was brilliant as well. Unfortunately, Katrina did get hurt in that game, which has now ruled her out. But Beth got 2 tries and the yellow card to boot, of course she did. But it's great that they can get that game time elsewhere and, get to represent their country. As I've said before, my only gripe is it clashed with AIL finals. And, for us personally, we were missing 6 or 7 players because of it. We ended up getting Chisholm released and Saoirse released. But I'm like, why can't we have all of our fun and, all these competitions and align them in a way that allows players to play every week and play with their clubs, play with Ireland under 20s, you know, play for the Interpros as opposed to, you know, getting pulled from their clubs and out of the league. But look, that's my personal gripe that I always have. But yeah, no, great for Lou, you know, captaining the team to 3 from 3. A lot of Munster players in there, definitely. But some other great players coming through as well. Like, they've capped a lot of players as well. Some Connacht players in there. You know, the rumour is this Interpros, all internationals are going to be released. So it'll be very interesting now to see how that fares out this year. And I think Connacht will get the benefit of that the most, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Definitely a couple of young players there. Ella Burns, Jemima. They played last year, but I think they have a lot of rugby under their belt this year now. And off the back of this, they've played 3 games. So I think, you know, it'll be a very interesting Interpros with those coming back in as well.
Yeah, certainly exciting time for them. Last but absolutely not least, Cian, stand up there and give us a look. The Mon squad. What's this all about?
The Mon squad. Yeah, this was an occurrence, well, a happening. Jesus, I don't even know how to describe it. It would just kind of spontaneously happened. It was when the bench was, I think, being emptied against Italy. Someone on one of the group chats called them the Mon squad. I shared that on the Her Sport group, and it absolutely blew. People loved it. Absolutely loved it. Next thing I knew, I was designing t-shirts and trying to set up an e-store, and it kicked on another gear then when Jack Murray had a photo of all of the subs waiting to go on, and someone did a stylized version of it, and then it was like, oh, can you include this? And yeah, sorted all that out as well, and it got included into it too. And yeah, so it was a really good opportunity. It was a lovely community moment.
Yeah, really
Just in
was.
this tiny little chat group, community moment, and it was a great opportunity as well for us to give back to that community, because all the proceeds from sales go back to Her Sport.
Yeah,
So-
and Her Sport Foundation is a great cause. It's really working hard to improve women and girls' participation in sport, and they're doing stuff in schools and stuff like that. So it's great. So if anybody wants one of the Mon Squad t-shirts, hoodies, Jesus, I think we got everything at this point. We've had demands for kids stuff. We've had demands for sleeveless. We've had demands for absolutely everything at this
Car
point.
flags, that was my favourite.
Car flags, yeah,
Car
yeah.
flags.
There'll be Christmas tree decorations by the time Christmas rolls around. But yeah, if you're looking for one, there'll be a link in the show notes. Also, just Google MudderRucker shop, top thing on Google there. And your purchase is for a great, great cause. So yeah, no harm in picking that up. So that's the episode for this week. We're looking ahead to round 5 next week. The last round of the Six Nations. There's lots to win, lots to lose next week. So it's going to be an exciting game. Chloe, thank you for joining us as ever with your wisdom. And Hugh, an absolute pleasure to have you and your insights. I feel like we're a little less biased with you around. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. I'm proud to offer a service.
It was great to have you. That's all for this week. Keep on rocking.